Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. I want you to just picture something for a second. You're miles away from civilization, right? You're sitting around this crackling campfire with your family. The air is absolutely freezing, the shadows are stretching out from the firelight, and you just step away into the thick, dark tree line for a quick moment of privacy. But when you turn back, the trees are just gone. They've been completely swallowed by this unnatural, suffocating fog. And standing right there, by a dark pond, is a girl. A girl who is about to show you something that will literally haunt you for the rest of your life. Today, we are dissecting one of the internet's absolute most chilling digital myths. We're going to completely gut the legend of Lulu, the eyeless girl, and figure out the very real, very human anxieties that brought her to life.
So our story actually kicks off with this incredibly terrifying opening premise from the classic creepypasta, Give Me Your Eyes. A young boy named Ruben steps away from his family's mountain campsite. Down by a nearby pond, he spots a girl just casually washing her legs. She introduces herself simply as Lulu. She tells Ruben that she can take him to where she lives, and she gently takes him by the hand. Now, what's deeply unsettling here is the whole atmosphere of the scene. Ruben points out that she's walking blindly into this impossibly thick fog, like it's just an everyday stroll. She guides him toward this old two-story house, hidden deep, deep within the woods. And Ruben, well, perhaps naively, just follows this mysterious girl right into the shadows, completely setting the stage for a quintessential horror trap.
Part 1. The Eyeless Girl's Legend. Once they get inside her eerily pristine house in the woods, she serves him this sweet, deep red soup. Outside, the fog has completely swallowed the world. There's no way out. But let's take a closer look at how Lulu herself is described in this moment, because it's super important. She's got pitch black, messy hair tied up in twin tails, with bangs draped over half her face. She's wearing a torn, dark blue pleated private school uniform. But the thing that really gets under your skin is the sensory language the author uses. When she grabs Ruben's hand, her skin is smooth, almost plush-like, but it is chillingly, unbelievably cold. She's covered in these nasty bruises and cuts. She presents herself as this fragile, vulnerable teenager in need of help, but the reality? It's something far, far more sinister, all cloaked in this deeply disturbing innocence.
So the horror rapidly escalates when Ruben gets woken up in the dead of night by this massive thud. Thinking Lulu might be in trouble, he creeps through the pitch-black house and eventually finds himself opening a basement door. Instantly, this foul, putrid wind just hits him in the face. As he walks down the stairs, the stench of rotting flesh gets so intense it actually turns his stomach. He hits a light switch and pries open this rusted door on the corner. And there it is. The visceral dread of the whole story peaks right here. It's an entire room absolutely packed with decaying bodies, men, women, teenagers, just sprawled out on the floor and literally hanging from the ceiling. But the absolute most horrifying detail? Every single face in that room has empty sockets. Not a single one of them has eyes.
Horrified, Ruben scrambles backwards and bumps into something. He turns around slowly. It's Lulu. But her dress, her arms, her legs, they are completely drenched in blood. She just looks at him and says, "You've seen too much." And then she brushes that long black hair out of her face. She has no eyes. There's literally just smooth skin where her eyes are supposed to be. But then, as Ruben just stands there paralyzed, the skin around those non-existent sockets actually begins to tear apart. It rips open, bleeding violently, and forms these deep, empty, black holes. She lunges for him, screaming, "Give me your eyes!" Ruben shoves her away, literally breaks his arm, desperately tearing through the foggy woods, and barely makes it back to the safety of his parents' campfire. Suddenly, the fog just vanishes, and his mother tells him there are no houses and definitely no girls anywhere in those woods.
Part 2. The Tragic Origins of Lulu.
Okay, so how does a monster like this actually come to be? Well, in the vast, totally interconnected lore of the internet, monsters are rarely just born evil, right? They're usually created by trauma, and the story of Lucille Tiffany Greatfield is a textbook example of this digital tragedy. Let's break down the bizarre mechanics of Lulu's existence. Physically, Lulu is permanently frozen at 14 years old. But chronologically, if you follow the timeline of her lore, she's actually 24. She can't age, though, interestingly enough, she can be killed. She operates in open spaces by manipulating that super dense fog we talked about. The fog literally pauses time and allows her to see, because without it, she's completely blind. And her main motivation, it isn't just mindless slasher movie killing, it's this tragic, never-ending loop where she's desperately trying to recapture her own stolen vision by harvesting the eyes of her victims.
If we trace her timeline back, the sheer tragedy of it all becomes super clear. Lucy was born to a Vietnamese mother and a Caucasian father. She was a quiet kid who just loved reading. But then, her mother tragically passed away from cancer, leaving Lucy completely devastated and depressed. Hoping a fresh start would help, her dad enrolled her in an all-girls private academy. And honestly, this is where the real nightmare begins. She became the target of relentless bullying, mostly led by a girl named Julia. The torment escalated day by day, until Julia actually went as far as drugging Lucy. Pushed entirely past her breaking point, Lucy fled into the woods behind the school. Out there, vulnerable, isolated, and totally broken, she encountered a dark entity. Now, fans usually theorize this was the classic internet demon Zalgo in disguise. This entity promised to make all her pain stop and give her the vision she so desperately wanted. But it was a trick. The fog completely consumed her, her eyes were violently ripped out along with her soul, and she was cursed with this undying, agonizing urge to steal the vision of others for eternity.
Part 3. Anatomy of a creepypasta. To really understand a character like Lulu, we have to look at the ecosystem she lives in. We need to dissect the cultural vehicle that drives this entire narrative. Creepypastas are, at their core, internet horror stories. The name itself is actually a play on copy and paste, because back in the day, these stories spread when users would literally copy the text and paste it across early internet forums and message boards. Now, I should mention, there is a pretty vocal segment of the internet that is super critical of this genre. If you jump onto Reddit horror forums, you'll see people dismissing characters like Lulu as just, quote, another Jeff the Killer trying way too hard to be edgy. Critics argue the genre went from genuinely scary, mysterious stories to just being angsty teen serial killer fan art for middle schoolers. But while the critics dismiss it, academics actually see something else entirely. They see this massive, fascinating subculture of collaborative storytelling where thousands of users are essentially co-creating these massive, intricate universes. And this brilliantly highlights the evolution from the classic campfire stories of the past to the interconnected digital monsters we have today. Think about traditional urban legends, stuff like The Killer in the Back Seat or Bloody Mary. Those relied heavily on oral storytelling. They were hyper-localized, cautionary tales that you'd whisper at a slumber party or on a long car ride. Digital creepypastas like Lulu, on the other hand, have a massive global reach. They're intensely trauma-focused, which we clearly saw with her backstory of extreme bullying and parental loss. Plus, they're incredibly visual. They rely heavily on fan art, community wikis, and multimedia platforms like YouTube to constantly expand and evolve the lore. Part 4. Net lore and the digital campfire.
Researchers are actively studying characters exactly like Lulu to understand this fundamental shift in how humans communicate. They don't just see a spooky story about an eyeless girl. They see the rise of the digital campfire. So the crucial point here is this: the internet didn't kill folklore, not at all. It just transformed it into what we call net lore. According to academic analysis, net lore is simply digital folklore. The channel of transmission shifted from spoken word to digital archives, massive wikis, and viral videos. So when a user reads the original story of Lulu and then writes their own spin-off where she meets up with another famous monster like the puppeteer, or they draw fan art of her bleeding eye sockets, they are actively participating in a living, breathing folklore tradition.
This whole concept is perfectly captured by researcher Trevor J. Blank's theory of digital folklore. He argues that digital platforms haven't erased our folk culture, they've totally amplified it. Because of participatory culture, audiences aren't just sitting back and consuming a story anymore, they are remixing it, they're adapting it virally. And what's really fascinating is how these stories so often reflect shared online trauma. Look at Lulu's origin, being violently bullied, feeling completely misunderstood, wanting to just escape into a fantasy world. That resonates deeply with the real-world anxieties of teenagers trying to navigate the modern digital age. It represents this incredible democratization of storytelling. Literally anyone with a keyboard and an internet connection can add the next chapter to the mythos.
Part 5. The evolution of fear.
So, you might be wondering, why does this matter to you? Why should any of us care about a fictional teenager stealing eyes in a digital fog? Well, because it acts as a perfect mirror for the evolution of human fear. As the academic literature points out, urban legends permeate contemporary societies by adapting to the shifting mediums and cultures in which they are shared. Whether we're reading a creepypasta on our phones at 2 a.m. or listening to a ghost story in the dark woods, our primal fears remain the same. Decades ago, teenagers terrified themselves by chanting Bloody Mary into a dimly lit bathroom mirror. They were exploring their anxieties about mortality and the unknown in a physical space. Today, we explore those exact same anxieties by clicking through endless wiki entries of eyeless girls and tall men in suits. The medium shifted from the bathroom mirror to the glowing screen in the palm of your hand, but our underlying human anxieties? They remain absolutely identical. Which leaves us with a pretty chilling final thought to wrap up our explainer today. We've dissected the myth, we've looked at the stats, and we've explored the cultural science behind the story. We know for a fact that the internet changed how we share our monsters. We've built massive databases for them. We've drawn their portraits, and we've gifted them these incredibly complex, tragic backstories. But as we sit alone in the dark, aimlessly scrolling through these endless digital forests of net lore, we really have to ask ourselves, are we simply creating these monsters as a reflection of our own societal trauma? Or are we just giving them a brand new place to hunt? Keep an eye on the fog, my friends. I'll see you in the next explainer.